Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Steph. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Everything going well?
Yeah. How about you?
Everything going well.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Fingers crossed. I think I've got this all set up.
You got it, girl. I was
right
gonna
over to
gonna
Facebook,
call you
so.
today and just say, did you check the settings and everything and whatever? But I'm like, she would ask if she needed help. She's got it.
Got it. We're recording this, so this will go on the recording. So
It's all right. It's all good. It's all good. Oh, thanks for sending out those notes too. The meeting minutes again.
No problem. Yeah, if you could just take a look at those so we can get those approved at the end of this, that'd be great.
Yep. Do you know if the old concession stand will be up by the end of this school year? I mean,
It
the
will
new
not.
one that they're rebuilding.
It will not. Fall of 2023.
Fall. Okay. So hopefully for football season.
No, a year from football season.
Oh, a year from fall. Oh, Lord. Okay. Gotcha. Look good to me.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
Good. Are you the host?
Well, I'm usually the hostess with the mostest, but no,
No.
our friend Jenny is.
Oh, but I don't see her on here.
she was on here. It just Seaholm PTA, I think
On
is,
here.
yeah.
It's on the new, we're on the new dedicated Seaholm PTA Zoom account. So,
Got
and
it.
full disclosure for everyone, I'm about to kick it over and it's going to stream on Facebook Live tonight too.
You're fabulous.
Isn't she fancy?
She's so fancy.
Stephanie,
I
where
tried.
did you, where is that picture taken? That's
One of my
on your-
birthdays from a few years ago, and I need to change that. I don't know how it's or why it's on there like that.
I mean, I love it. I think it's hilarious.
Yes, it is. I think Ethan and I were sharing an account at one time, and I think something transpired there years ago. So I'm gonna have to work on that. But thank you for pointing that out to everyone. I totally appreciate this.
It's funny. Look, I'm sitting in the chair you love just for you.
I know you are. Thank you. I love that. It's your queen chair.
It's my queen chair. It's really a normal sized chair. I'm just not a normal sized person.
Don't tell people. You look really tall right now.
Because it's angled up.
I know. Good job.
Oh. Oh, there are other people. This is a whole new view. So
Yes.
I didn't realize, I thought it was just the three of us. Oh, there we
No,
go.
no.
There are other people here. Oh my
Yes.
goodness. I'm so sorry for everybody else who's just sitting here listening to me babble.
We're entertaining.
I
I
believe
don't
that's
know
Robert
why
Marsh.
you're apologizing. Yeah.
Robert Marsh.
What is that?
I'm going through the process of getting an authorization number. Yeah.
Oh, I think he was
He
doing
muted
something
himself,
else.
I think.
Yes. Oh. All right. Well, we are going to wait a few minutes, I believe, because what just ended, Kyle?
The mental health awareness program for the parents just finishes up at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
So it should
Okay.
be done by now.
Okay, we will give it just a minute or two in case people have to take a little break. Hi, Elena. Pardon, I see you.
Hi. I'm still at work, but I'm trying to leave, so I'm going to be muting and listening in the car.
Got it. For those who don't know, this poor girl has an hour-and-a-half commute one way every single day, just about, because she works in Lansing.
Yeah.
Well,
Crazy.
MSU has good benefits, though.
Yeah. I hear,
My kids will be Spartans. They don't have a choice. So
even though that kills you to the core.
it does, but we'll deal. Half off tuition is definitely worth it.
Mhm. All right, we'll give it, let's see, we'll wait, we'll do it at 7:05. We'll get started. All right, well, we may pick up a few more, but I know that time is precious to everybody, so we're going to just go ahead and get started. There's only one topic for this evening. And that is, unless of course, before I start there, Jenny, did you have anything you wanted to discuss? I think you had sent some notes or something beforehand. Did you need to
We
cover
don't,
that as part of this
we
meeting?
only have 4 executive board members. We don't have enough for a quorum. We can't vote on that right now.
Okay, all right, okay, all right. So we wanted to get a conversation going. So a little bit of background. I was asked to participate in a discussion amongst a selection of a committee. I'm on a committee to discuss the current trimesters versus semesters. And I believe even over the last year, there may have been surveys that have been distributed to students, faculty, and parents, just to solicit just people's viewpoints and feedback. And now the school is at a point where they're just talking it over, and it's a group discussion between Groves and Seaholm. And I had suggested to Kyle that, anytime there's change, I'm a firm believer in repetition, particularly in an era where just getting people to notice that there are messages out there and there might be significant changes, or people are talking about significant changes, and just getting that out there. We're just so inundated with information that this is one of what I hope to be many times that we have this discussion. So I asked Kyle because Kyle's, of course, also has done, Mrs. Hall or Kyle has done a lot of research on this and has a really good perspective. We are not here to make decisions. We are here to just start to make sure that the faculty and the administration have the viewpoint of the parents, so that no matter what decision is made, whether it's to stay on a trimester or move to semesters, that they understand the concerns or things that, that it through any transition, if one were to occur, that input is taken into consideration. So that's really where it's at. Like I said, there is no decisions made at this point in time, but it is about starting to get the message out there. I think with that, unless there's anything else that anyone else wants to add, I'm just going to turn it over to Kyle.
Thanks, Shannon. I really appreciate that. Jenny, could you share so we could share the screen? Mike is going to actually, Mike Wicker's here, is going to actually go through the PowerPoint. Shannon, you've seen the PowerPoint. This was shown at our last full committee meeting. Mm-hmm. And Susan and I and Mark, our new deputy superintendent, went through and created this this slideshow so that we could give some background to some of the information that we were seeking from parents and students on a possible shift. And in our meeting, we talked about the reasons like why we are interested in pursuing or at least taking a look at this. And as Shannon said, we have not made that decision, but we have started gathering a lot of that information. We went to the trimester schedule about a dozen years ago. And the reason that we went to a trimester schedule was because we had at that time a little bit of a budget crunch, and we needed to pull in some, tighten the purse strings a little bit. And so the trimester was a compromise from going to a 6-period day. It allowed and maintained choice for students, which they were very interested in. And so we chose the trimester schedule at that time. So that was why we went. We did not go to the trimester because we thought it was the most, it was the most educationally sound, although I don't think it was unsound. But it was, like I said, a compromise that helped offset costs and while maintaining choice for students. So we felt for what we could afford at the time, it was the best option. Other schools at that time, that was right around 2008 in the aftermath of some of the recession then, Some of the schools in the county and in the state were also moving to a trimester schedule. And so it seemed like an option that many schools were taking at that time. Since that time, Seaholm and one other school in Oakland County and the state, as far as we can tell, continue to be on trimesters. All the other schools that had gone to a trimester have reverted back to a semester. And so hopefully today, in the next few minutes, and I will give you a little background on that and why we were thinking that now is a time for us to take a look at the possibility of moving to a semester. And again, as Shannon said, we really wanted the input from our parents and our students. Change is difficult. Our students have been through a lot of change in the last couple of years that have put a lot of pressure on them. So, you know, we may ask ourselves, and we may indeed decide that we don't want to force one more change. We are not considering this change for next year at all. If it came about, it would be for the following year. We are literally just studying this right now, and we'll make a decision based on some of our input, based on what the schedules can do. And so I just want to give you a little bit of background on that. Okay, so Mike, go ahead and take a look at the next slide. So what is the focus? Why is it? I mean, we are now working on our strategic plan for the district. And so any schedule we have, we want to be a part of that strategic plan. And the goal, the focus is to maintain a competitive world-class learning environment where students develop 21st century learning skills through innovative, personalized instructional design and delivery. And so our question is that better suited with a trimester or a semester schedule? What can we do to best serve our student body? Next slide. Okay, so the goal is to create a schedule that will improve student learning through a deep, rigorous, and relevant curriculum delivery, make students feel more connected to their learning, to their teachers, and to their high school. And that is really important to us. Research says that students who feel connected are happier. Students who are happier are more likely to learn and be, once they find that connection and that relevancy, then that learning can really grow. And that's what we're looking for. We want to make sure that we can embed college and career readiness. We understand that the goal of most of our students, the large majority of our students, is to go on to college. Although we have some students who may choose different paths, and we want to make sure that we can provide an innovative and more personalized curriculum for some of our students, and that will lead to whatever path that they choose to be on. And we want to be sure that we are remaining competitive with surrounding high schools in the county, the state, and the nation. So we've taken a look at that especially here in the county, and we're trying to see where do we need to go to stay in that competitive realm. Mike? So the U.S. News and World Report, of course, puts out every year their top schools. And so this is the top 10 in the state of Michigan this year. And you can see that Seaholm is not in the top 10. We are in the county, number 14 in this list. You can see on here the International Academy of Macomb and then the International Academy of Bloomfield, where we do send about 100 of our students are on that list. And I think that's entirely unfair, okay, because it takes the top students. You have to test to get in there. The students come back and they can play sports here at the school, but it's a little frustrating to us, to me, to see that. But what you don't see here, I mean, these are great schools, love these schools, but what you don't see besides Seaholm, okay, on it, is a trimester. Every one of these schools is on a semester. And we think that that is something that we're acknowledging. I don't think that the U.S. News and World Report is the be-all, end-all and should make our decision, but it is something that we need to look at, especially when we do see schools like Rochester, Troy, Novi, Grosse Pointe, Northville on there. What are they doing? And so we want to make sure that that we remain competitive. There have been in years past when we were on this list, and we're not now. And so that is a question that we are asking ourselves. So what is something that we could be doing? And this question, of course, on the schedule is an important question to answer. It's not the only one question that we have, but it's definitely important. And so I do think the fact that we are sending more students now to the International Academy than we ever have is one of the reasons that you might not see Seaholm and Groves as high up as they had been in the past, because those student scores are test scores are no longer counted within our district. Okay, next. In the Detroit metro area high schools, we see semesters for the most part. Okay, the 6-period day semesters in those schools listed, the 7-period day semesters in those schools, 8-period day semesters. Yep, there is an 8-period, Bloomfield Hills, okay, who was on that list through their academy, and Northville, that is on that list of top 10 schools. They have an 8-period day. Northville has a 7-period day actually plus a seminar. And that is something that we were intrigued with from a variety of schools. Is it possible to have what we have now as an X block? Northville has something similar to that, but then they have a portion of that that is a mandatory attended seminar. And we think we could do a lot with college and career counseling, a lot of things that need to be done in that time, a time period similar to that. So we're pretty intrigued by that. And then Birmingham and Holly, Michigan. Birmingham and Holly are the two schools that are on a trimester. Holly followed suit with us. We had a few colleagues there. I remember when we went and did and worked with them. So they followed after us, along with the other schools that are no longer on trimesters, as I said before. So the 691 school districts in Michigan, high schools that are on trimesters account for less than 1% of that total. Now, that is not the reason and end all. I mean, we are still a great school and we do a lot with the trimesters, and there are benefits to the trimester. But I think we need to acknowledge what we're seeing. So, Mike. We do want to look at the data in terms of test scores. Student math scores are trending downward on state norm test to somewhat. Okay, not in an alarming pace, but somewhat. And so I don't think that's unusual. The last 2 years have been very problematic with test scores. Not all our students are taking the exams. And so we can't draw a lot of conclusions from that, but I think it is important. But one thing that I know, because I experienced it when we moved to trimesters, is the AP data. And you know, AP is our advanced placement courses, which are so important for our students, for their college preparatory experience, for gaining college credit when they go off to college. And when we promised, when we moved to the trimester back in, the 2000, that would have been in like 2010, maybe, when we decided we would review that and see the trimesters, because there were a lot of complaints about the trimester. And so we thought, well, let's look at the test scores and see what happened. And we didn't see much movement in our ACT. At the time we gave the ACT, not the SAT. We didn't see a lot of movement in that. But what we did see with the AP data was some of our classes were 3 trimesters, our AP classes were 3 trimesters, and some were 2. The classes that had 3 trimesters, we saw a bump in their test scores, and the classes that were 2 trimesters saw a dip in their test scores. And so what it did was average out to what kind of similar to what we had been before, if you just did it generalization. But it reinforced, of course, everything we understand about time on task when you are learning something, and that you need to be there present, you need to be there consistently, you need to get that kind of daily exposure. And in a 2-trimester AP class, you can't do that. You either finish in early March and the students take the test in May. And so there's that gap, or you don't finish the curriculum in a 2-trimester AP course. So we feel, and remember that in AP, our students are ordered in every year. They're normed with the other students taking the test. And so our students are at a disadvantage in our AP program. Again, our students in 3 trimesters and even our students in 2 trimesters do well, but I feel like that is a significant piece of data that we need to acknowledge as we move forward. Mike? And so why would a semester schedule meet all the needs of all stakeholders and improve instruction? Well, the proponents of the semester say it builds relationships among teachers and students as well as among peers. The continuity of classes eliminates that gap. And we hear a lot of about the gap, and we heard a lot when we first moved to the trimester as well. Instruction results in more engaging activities. Okay, remember that what we did was we took an 18-week course and we put it into 12 weeks when we moved to the trimester. And so some of the things that were removed from the curriculum were those things that were maybe more engaging, dug a little deeper because we had to cover a certain amount of content. And so that was a concern that was raised at the time. And depending on the course, you can see the results of that. And we also feel that innovative scheduling opportunities could be present for interdisciplinary experiences and team teaching if we were on a semester more likely than a trimester. Mike? As I mentioned earlier, AP courses are at a disadvantage, and we also feel that there's an opportunity to implement an advisory program where students could have an adult advisor for 4 years who would work on social emotional learning skills, college and career readiness, SAT testing prep, executive functioning skills, as well as any academic assistance. So again, as I mentioned, we're pretty intrigued by that. We like our X block now, but the idea of having something mandatory is also appealing, because probably on any given Tuesday morning or Thursday morning when we have X block and we want our students to be here, we do not have 50% of the students here. So of course, sleeping in is also, a nice bonus for kids, and they might choose to do that. But sometimes a little extra help in the class or a little extra engagement might be nice as well. So we're looking at trying to create an opportunity to engage in that kind of work. And I won't go into the ins and outs of the minutes and the days and all the things that go into calculating why we have a schedule and how we have to implement that schedule and what X block does to that, because we can't count those minutes toward instruction because we don't take attendance, and we don't have like a set, regular, consistent meeting. We could do that and count those minutes if we had an advisory period. And so that's been an attractive thought for moving on into perhaps a semester. Right? And we have, as you know, we've surveyed both students and the parents. We've had several focus groups here at Seaholm with our students, and this is what they've told us. They told us they want choice, which is what they wanted to begin with, which is why we went to the trimester back in the day instead of a semester 6-period day at the time. They want time to build relationships with friends and teachers. Okay, they like that idea, and that so. We need to think about in 12 weeks, can you do that? Okay, and so that's something that we might look at as a bonus for perhaps a semester. They want depth of learning, not more homework. And this is a big fear that they've talked about. They're afraid that if we extend the trimester into a semester, that they're going to get a bunch more worksheets or they're going to get a lot more homework. And they really do not want that. And that is something that the teachers and administrators would really need to examine and make sure did not occur. They want a manageable schedule and workload, and because they are afraid, to go from 5 periods a day to now go to 6 or 7, 8 is not probably likely, because even that's an advisory period, but that's a little frightening for some of our kids to think now I have to handle 6 classes or 7 classes. The point is, though, that just about every other student does that, and so in the country. And so how do we make that something that the students could do, or do we decide we don't want our students to do that? These are the decisions, that we're going to have to make. And they want to be prepared for their post-secondary path. So as we talk to students in our focus groups, as the teachers talk to them about things, they certainly don't want to be at a disadvantage to any other student in Michigan, in getting into the school they want to get into, and or achieving, once they're at that school, achieving a success in that school. And so that is obviously very, very important to them and to parents as well. Hey, Mike. And so what are the next steps? Well, we're going to continue to have more focus groups of stakeholders to discuss this. The district committee will continue to meet and they will serve that same purpose. And a recommendation will be made to the superintendent and the school board. And a decision will be made on the best schedule for Birmingham to be implemented, at least at this time, we're thinking the following school year. So not next year, but the following year. We are thinking we would be ready to we'd be able to make that recommendation and either move, make any changes that we want to see, and or remain on the schedule, maybe with some modifications that we might choose to have, but those will come as a result of the work that we're doing right now. So that's a lot of information. But mostly Shannon and I talked about wanting to make sure that you have a little bit of background and summary on where we've been in our work over the last year. And to, also to be fully transparent, this is something that teachers have been kind of pushing for a couple of years as well. Because they feel like, again, going back to the idea of relationships, they feel like they don't get to know their students well in 12 weeks. And we really feel that a semester would be more engaging. But there are all types of schedules. So we have not decided, even if we went into a semester schedule, what that might look like. So those are continued conversations that we would need to have with all of the input from our students and from our parents to guide us in those decisions. But then choosing the one that best fits and suits our students. So that's that. Any questions? Oh, they have a couple sample schedules. I forgot about those if you want to take a look at them. We talked about a late start. Is that something a lot of our parents and kids would love? We all enjoyed starting later during COVID when we were online. That was kind of nice. So we've talked about the possibility of doing that, and it definitely is a possibility depending on the day that you choose, the kind of semester or day you choose.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
If we did this originally 12 years ago to help with the budget, with the situation we're in now, how can we even look at this?
Well, the semester schedule, depending on the one you choose, can be actually more cost effective. And so you've got to, so that was why we chose the trimester and not the 6-period day. The 6-period day is a very cost effective. It all is the percentage of amount of that the teachers are teaching during the day. And so the 6-period day, teachers teaching 5 out of 6 is a cost-effective way. 7 is cost-effective if teachers teach 6 out of 7, but not if they teach 5 out of 7. So you can see that information, and I appreciate your point, and I think you're absolutely correct. In fact, we did ask about that and talked a little bit about that is this something you fast track if that's the most cost-effective thing to do? And so I know that there were people in the district that were talking about that. But they do also want a schedule that suits our students and our stakeholders and does fit in with the strategic plan and feel that they can work together to create the best schedule, but keeping in mind, and even when we were going to it, we were told it had to be cost effective. And so everybody understands that that's important.
Can a parent who's not in PTA comment? Okay.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
I'm going to actually try. I have so many questions. I always end up dominating.
Sure.
So please talk.
I just want to give an example of a story. My son is a freshman and he didn't have math first trimester, and the PSAT was happening in the fall. And he's a good candidate for the PSAT, but I said, you know what, you shouldn't take it. You haven't had math in 5 months. So that's a problem, is for people who don't have it that first semester. And then it did cross my mind, well, what's he going to do when he doesn't have a third semester of an AP, or how is that going to play out? Secondly, as a freshman, it's kind of awkward too that they get comfortable with their lunchroom, and then now it's the end of the year and he has some new teachers and there's shakeup in the lunchroom. So I do agree with all those facts that were made as far as comfort with teachers and socially. I do think that semesters could be more beneficial as far as that goes. But one concern I do have is that we also kind of struggle with figuring out how to get the core class, how do I call them? The core classes that they need, not the core classes, but the classes that they need to take, like PE, speech, core global systems. I'm having a hard time getting that in his schedule with Spanish and band. So now I think, okay, well now if we switch to semesters, now how is he going to get some of those classes in that he still needs to take? So those are just some thoughts to the whole process. Overall, though, I think I'm a fan of switching to semesters.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And those are things that do have to be examined. When we went to trimesters, we had to increase the number of requirements and credits. Otherwise students would be done when they were juniors. And so that if we move back, that's something we would have to do. And there's a transition, a rollout, transition. But I think you make some, excellent points all along.
And as a former AP grader and AP teacher, when I would go to grade and I'd tell people, oh yeah, we're done in March and the AP's not till May. And I tell them that I supplemented it through Saturday review sessions and after school review sessions. They just were impressed that the kids did as well as they did, because our kids do well because our kids work their butts off. So we have great kids at Seaholm and they work really hard. But as a 2-try AP teacher, I was always jealous of my 3-try colleagues. They got to see their kids, up until, the day of the exam. So.
Agreed.
I have another. Oops. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm kind of interested in that you were saying that our math scores are down. I'm wondering why you don't think that relates to the new curriculum versus the trimesters that have been there for.
Yeah. You know why? Is because the integrated math, actually, we watched very careful. That was pre-COVID. We watched it very carefully, and our scores jumped on the PSAT 8 points. Okay, after we introduced integrated math 1. And we were watching that like a hawk because, of course, you probably know and we're aware of just the controversy surrounding that. We saw gains the next year as well. And then COVID started. Okay, so, but we were watching that extremely carefully and did notice that we had, and we were so pleased that there was that just such a substantial jump in our test scores at that time. And so that was good. In PSAT, we were talking a little bit about the trend in SAT that is, I think, statewide and district-wide, okay? But our students have actually done, with integrated math, had done exceptionally well. So we were pretty proud of them. But yes, in the SAT, which you remember that it was integrated over 4 years, then COVID hit. So we lost a little ground, I think, in that SAT there at the end. But no, it's not. It's as far as I know, it's not integrated math. Okay, we have the data to back that up.
Don't we only really have 1 full year of that though? Because
No.
No,
we have several years.
Implemented.
This is the 3rd year.
Freshman.
4th year.
Yeah, I think it's actually the 4th or 5th year.
It's the 4th year because my son actually started it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got a question. So I'm trying to understand just at a fundamental level the difference between semesters and tries. I think I'm grasping it. But one thing that you mentioned was just longer. They have longer time with the teachers, so that makes sense. They don't have that gap in time. One of the things you mentioned was that they'd have more time with an adult advisor. Like, help me understand, why does that? Why does that change?
Right. Well, if we go to an advisory period, then what we would do is they would meet, say, twice a week with their advisory, and they would keep that same faculty member for 4 years. And so now you're creating this relationship, of another person that checks in with you, every other day to make sure you're doing well, to get to know you, because we find that connection is important. So that's what that one
scheduled time versus a optional, come to X block if you can, and not
Right.
everyone. Okay, I see.
Right, and this time would not always be just for academics. It could be for other things that we would do. We might have a assembly or a topic that we're talking about. We do that sometimes now, but you could introduce topics and have that conversation with that same group of students for 4 years and that same faculty member for 4 years.
Understood. That makes a lot of sense. And then
Yeah,
one
it
other
sounds-
question, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
is you'd mentioned that originally the move to trimesters, like I didn't really grasp like why the move to it. You mentioned budget was one of them. How does this affect budget? How is
Well,
this?
when we moved from, before we were on trimesters, we were on a block schedule, a 7-period block schedule. And it was, everybody liked it, okay, because there was, not everybody, but most people liked it because it was, it had a lot of time, you know, for students to, like, you had 90-minute classes, but you didn't meet every day. And so people liked it. We enjoyed it. The students on the Tuesday, Thursday blocks, they didn't start till 9 o'clock. Okay, so they had a 90-minute block that was delayed, or they could come in and get help. So you can see it was a relaxed pace, but it was expensive because teachers taught 5 out of 7. And so when we moved to the trimester at Seaholm and at each of the high schools, we lost 7 teachers. So you could see that that was a big cost, you know, when we went to the trimester, and now teachers are teaching 4 out of 5 classes. So they teach 12, classes in the course of a year. So it's all about the amount that the teachers are teaching, because staffing is such a big part of the expense of teaching.
Got it.
So
Okay.
Kyle,
Thank you.
so block is different than semester,
Right,
right?
Yes.
Okay.
but it was on a
Okay,
semester.
What's
We
that?
were on semester blocked before we went to trimesters.
So the easiest way to look at block is so I was a student during this time when I went to Seaholm. It was wonderful. Monday, we had all 7 classes. And then on Wednesday and Friday, we had 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, we had 2, 4, and 6. And since we had that floating time on Tuesdays and Thursdays, that's where X block came from, because we had that time. So block scheduling just means you chunk it out by time versus what we're looking at a 6-period day. You meet hours 1 through 6 every day. Where a block schedule, if we were to, who's got the 8-period 4x4, Kyle? Is that Northville?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
they have
so.
7. Yeah, they have 7. So Northville has 7 classes in an advisory. So every other day they see 4 of those classes. So they might see 1, 3, 5, 7, and then they see 2, 4, 6, and then their advisory period. So
The
it's a
advantage
different way to
that-
do it.
Yeah, the advantage to that too for the kids is they don't have to prep for every class every day like they did on Monday, but then they felt, so when I see the kids saying they're worried about the managing the time, there is a part of me that thinks, well, then would they do well in a block schedule where they didn't have all their classes every day, and then they wouldn't feel so pressured with homework and everything. So that that was an advantage that the kids talked about liking with the block schedule. So that's something, as we look at whatever schedule we do choose, that it just made me think that maybe they would prefer something like that.
Also, you might, whoops,
Go ahead.
thanks. Also, you want to remember too, is colleges mostly are on semesters instead of tri. And I know I have a daughter, my oldest, is actually a sophomore, and it took a minute for her to really get into and how long the semester was, because to her it was rush, 12 weeks, rush, where she told us that she actually likes the semesters because she feels like they're more in depth with the information. She builds a relationship with the class and the teacher. And when your student, if they choose to go to college and that's their path, you actually have to provide 2 teacher recommendations, usually with an application to college. So you want your child to actually, have that relationship with teachers too. Just wanted to put that out there for.
So that kind of goes into my question. When we're talking about, the teachers having a relationship with the kids, aren't the kids with the teachers longer per day right now? Like the class is actually longer than it will be. So they are getting that time with the teacher. It's just that you would be elongating it through the year.
No, you really don't. Like, it depends on your schedule. Okay. So if you, it's not that much different, because on Tuesdays and Thursdays right now, it's 60-minute classes. We do have 70-minute classes on the other days, so it's still a matter of, you're right. But if a kid is out, see, which is another problem with the trimester. If your kid is sick for a week in a trimester, okay, that is significant amount of time that he's missing in his class. Whereas if he's out for a week in a semester in 18 weeks, it's not quite as impactful. So it's all in how you look at getting to know your students. If a student's absent, I'm not getting to know him, whether I had 70 minutes or 60 minutes or 90 minutes, but if I have 18 weeks with them, then I am more likely to get to know him, or her as the semester progresses, because I have an additional 6 weeks with the student. And so
the shortfall, I mean, not a shortfall, but so then you don't get as much choice picking your electives, because is that the trade-off?
That is definitely, you're right. That is absolutely the biggest con, I think, meaning,
yes.
that you're not going to have the choice that you do, because students right now can pick 15 classes. So it depends on the schedule that you choose. If you choose a 7-period day, then the students get 14 classes in a year. If you choose a 6-period day, they get 12 classes in a year. And so now they're losing 3 of those choices. Now, there are some creative ways to work with the 6-period schedule that might do like what we call skinnies, like you could do a 9-week, couple 9-week courses in a semester. So you could, for example, a student could take drawing as a 9-week course and then take creative writing as a 9-week course, so he still gets choice, and he still gets, that's a possibility. That's a creative way of scheduling. I don't know how easy it is. Mike is our scheduler here. You might say he doesn't want to do something like that, and then you have, I can see Catherine going, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine doing that.
No, I can't. I'm actually glad you brought it up, Kyle, because I know from looking at transcripts from so many other schools that are on semesters, I do see a lot of those skinnies.
Oh,
and I
good.
see particularly PE, health, and comp tech, and that advisory, they come in at 0.25 credit courses because they're skinnies. And I was actually questioning if that was something that might be on the table, because I'm trying to imagine computer tech as a semester course. And I mean, our kids already come in very knowledgeable about computer tech, and a lot of other schools actually embed that computer tech mandatory requirement for graduation in the middle school curriculum. And I'm just wondering if there's some opportunities that we have here as we are considering this semester to be more efficient.
I think you're absolutely right. I would not even be opposed to looking at something like that, although I don't ever want to speak for the middle school and doing something, but those are the kinds of solutions we need to look for. And we have to talk about requirements. When we went to the trimester, we upped some of the requirements. And so those are things that we need to definitely examine. And I think you're right, that would be an excellent course for a skinny.
So the skinny are very interesting, because as a parent with an incoming freshman next year, one of the reasons why we have chosen to stay at Seaholm versus a private school is the amount of electives and the quality of the electives. So if that goes away, you may lose people like me, which you don't need any more bleeding in that sense. So
Absolutely.
if you can dodge that skinnies, I think that helps. But that is one thing that public school does very well that some of the privates cannot compete with.
Thank you,
is
Caroline.
the elective course.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. And I see that. And we've heard that from the kids. Okay. In fact, we have a student here. She's a new student this year. She's a sophomore, but she said the same thing. She was coming from Cranbrook. What she saw here was the ability to be able to take many courses. And so we've had that conversation with some of our students as well. So choice is right up there on important, being an important part of what our students want as a part of school. And I get it, there's a lot out there to experience, and they definitely want to capitalize on that. And the breadth, the breadth of our AP offerings, is something that is also important.
Can I just say one more thing, Kyle? Just my only concern as a class of 2024 parent is the impact on that class. This is a class that had no 8th grade graduation. They had a virtual 9th grade. They've had a mostly masked sophomore year. They will have hopefully a normal junior year, but it will be their most difficult year with ACT and SAT testing. And then they are going to get hit potentially with a completely different schedule, which, could be very impactful. And we already know that our junior classes, the maturity level isn't quite the same. They have been impacted by COVID. We see a difference in those classes compared to prior years at the same grade level in behavior and how they're handling change. And I'm just not sure that class of 2024 can take or needs another drastic change in their high school career.
I think that's a point well taken. And I see all the same things that you're seeing here at the school. And we definitely want to take that under advisement. And anything, should we make a change, we need to keep that in mind so that we are there and ready and have visible supports for that class. For all the classes, but certainly you're right, that class would have been through the ringer. We can talk about the timing of that as we move forward, but I definitely see your point.
Kyle, so, we're also used to planning out basically your kid for 4 years. I'm also a parent of a freshman. And so, at 8th grade, the advisors come in and they basically help you plan out your 4 years under a trimester. My kid will be a junior if in fact we go through this. And I'm just thinking, I would assume there's going to be a lot of emphasis around that transition, because everything he's doing up to this point, because there is no decision made, is under the assumption he's going to be on trimesters for 4 years.
Right.
And so, and same thing with the class that will be seniors, the one. So I think I'm just unclear, and I don't expect you to have an answer, but that'll be really important to understand. Does something get lost? Maybe something gets gained in the transition. Usually it's a loss, but hopefully maybe let's look at the positive, and maybe there's a gain here at the end of the day when it all shakes out between the conversion process. But I think to me that is one of the biggest concerns, is just that conversion when, it's almost like, do you start with the kids that are in 8th grade now or whenever it is and say, okay, they're going to come in and when they're planning out their 4 years, their first 3 years is on trimesters, their 4th year is on a semester. The next set of 8th graders that comes in, their 2 years is on. But I realize that's a very long plan.
That is also scheduling almost impossible to do, because the kids don't just take siloed classes where freshmen only take I mean, not to burst your bubble in the middle of your conversation, but as a scheduler, I will tell you,
I could see Mike
needs to be on one schedule.
I can hear the passion. No, I mean, so at the end of the day, and I'm not suggesting it, that is the ideal world. I mean, of course, we don't live in an ideal world. I think more importantly is just that transition. What's that going to look like? And at what point, if a decision is made, do you start? Because to me, again, it's like, get it out there. Like, I just feel like everything has to be, because it gets messier before it gets better.
Right.
So that's probably my biggest concern, is the transition. And is there a chance that he could lose something?
Right.
Kyle, it's Julia. It's just a question. Is there also the opportunity that with the semesters and the structure where they've got a time at the day where they're with one class as a counselor, that actually helps with the transition, that it provides a level of stability that they haven't had because they could or do not have to do XBlock, whereas now you're really talking about a home room, for lack of a better term, and that allows them a certain level of community that they haven't had. And would it actually help with that? And that transition is providing that level of community that they haven't really had in the last several years.
Yeah, that would be the intended outcome, and maybe we could put plans in place for that advisory period that would help with, as Julia's mentioning, help with that transition and have those kinds of conversations and have that assistance there for the students, at least a couple days a week, planned and in place. I think that would be definitely a good use of that time period.
Are grades based on semesters then, or are they based on quarters if you switch to semesters?
There's semesters unless you do like a hybrid where the skinnies, then it's a 9-week. So semesters would be the 0.5 credit, and then a 9-week course would be 0.25, and 2 together would be 0.5. So the semester is just the longer 18 weeks, but you could possibly put in the shorter classes in there if you wanted to.
Can I go back to Shannon's comment about the planning of it all? I just want to say, Mike is right. We cannot run 2 schedules at the same time. And I don't think that's what you were saying. I think you had a bigger concern about just the planning of it from a parent and student perspective.
Yes. Oh yeah,
you
can't run 2 schedules.
Right. So, but I think what, if you look at the course catalogs, particularly when integrated math was introduced, you will see that what they did, and would probably end up doing the same thing, is we created something that was, this is what the class of 2021 is pathway will look. This is the class of 22's pathway will look. And when we do this change, I suspect we'll probably do the same thing in our course catalog, so that an incoming freshman can sort of map out, the narrowing or widening of that pathway.
Right. That's exactly what we did when we moved to trimesters. Each class had a different there was a rolling number of credits each class needed until they got through that first 4 years, and so then we were, on the path, and we didn't need to do that anymore.
Yeah, I must have said it incorrectly. I was never intending that there'd be 2 different types of schedules. It was just more or less when a child starts planning out their 4 years, that when they're planning it out, their 4th year is on it's on semesters. And then same thing when the next year is coming in, they're going to be juniors when it happens instead of seniors. And so they're planning out their 4 years 2 and 2. Sorry, I was unclear on that. But in either case, as long as there's a transition and just understanding that, because I think that's the biggest concern, is what's gained or what's lost.
Good point.
I want to piggyback on, as an incoming, a student with a parent with an incoming freshman, for them to be once again put in transition in this way after so many years of COVID, and it really makes me uncomfortable. And it's not to say that maybe semesters aren't better, but I think my child's consistency will be more important at that point, because you would be changing it when he's a sophomore. So I struggle with that. And I hope that you guys take that in for these classes that have been so impacted with COVID.
Right.
And that
yeah, I think we do need to do that.
school doesn't feel good.
Right.
The other question I have is, when you were talking about, the schools in the top 10 in the state, I've always kind of looked at those and seen that our test scores, we've always competed in that level. It seems to me our class size actually what brings us down in the rankings, not our level of education or our test scores, but that sometimes we have 32, 35 kids in a class. And if we're talking about teachers getting to know and having time with students, isn't that a bigger thing to implement than a semester trimester change?
Right. Actually, we don't have many classes with 32 to 30. I mean, 32 is the highest a class can go per contract. But many of our classes, Mike and I, have been doing the schedule, are, much, much lower than that. Our cap on English classes is 25. And so actually, I think we do pretty well with class sizes, comparatively speaking, with other districts. That will tighten, okay, with budget concerns. We will have some tightening of that. But even with that, I don't think you're going to see much more than what we have here. And other schools that are on that list are operating in the same realm. You know, Northville and Grosse Pointe, they have similar class sizes. Rochester's, I think, are much bigger. So it's, I think we're doing pretty well with class size right now. From everything I can see, I know we have, like I said, our English classes are all under 25, and our math classes, a lot of our math classes are under that as well. So.
All right. So unless there's any other questions, we're getting close to the top of the hour. And like I said at the beginning of this, there is, I mean, I've now been in 3 or 4 different discussions, and each time I learn more, or I'm soaking it in more, and there's more time to think about it. So get the word out to your parent friends out there. And we're going to keep this as an ongoing discussion, and in terms of, you know, what the discussions are. And if there's input specifically that you, or concerns that you want to communicate, those channels are always open, either directly to the administration, Mike or Kyle, or you can share it with me. And because again, the PTA, the whole point of it is for the parents to get together and talk with the teachers and the administration. So this is the forum for it. So I'm so thankful that you guys attended, and there's definitely more to come on this topic. And Kyle, thank you. And it looks like Jenny has something she wants to say.
I have a question unrelated to the trimester semesters. Dr. Roberson mentioned at the last board meeting that she'd received the security audit for the district. I'm just wondering if you have seen that, and
Yes. Well,
like what the
yes.
process is about implementing
Yeah.
some of those changes.
Right, thank you. Yes, we did have the consultant come to Seaholm. We spent at least 2 hours with him. He moved from room to room. He looked at the doors. He looked inside, outside, looked at windows. He asked numerous questions about our systems, and he conveyed some information at the time, but then he was going to be taking that to Dr. Roberson and the board. Some of the interesting things that he said about the security was, first, he did talk about the training, the ALICE training, and said that any kind of training like that, safety training, is hugely beneficial. You know, that our students need to be trained in that, the staff needs to be trained in that. In fact, we need to be more trained in that. We need to be more consistent in that, and in our talking points and things like that in our instruction with students. So that was one thing that he talked about. I know there was a lot of talk about the doors, right, with the door locks and everything. He had some reservations about that. He says that first, he was also at Oxford within an hour of the shooting. And so he helped with their safety review of things. And it is true that they had the locks on the door. And it is true that the students quickly ran into the classrooms. It occurred outside. It occurred during passing, at the end of passing. And he said that the individual did not go to any door. Okay, and they actually don't often do that. And so he's worried about the locks, because students can get inside and lock people out too. And so you could wreak havoc in a classroom. He said he has known or heard of situations where a student got in, locked himself in, and tried to harm himself. And so these are things that are, were something we hadn't thought about and were concerning. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, what they're going to determine, but that is the concern they mentioned about locks. So I'm just, telling you, as I told my staff too, this is something I had not thought about, when we were all looking at locks.
So Kyle,
yeah.
I know you guys are still going through it, and we had promised in the special meeting the last time, because we've had, two what I call special PTA meetings to cover this topic, and we promised one more to talk through the security audit and information just like this. When do you think, so at this point, I mean, I don't mean to cut you off,
No, that's
other
okay.
than that it is 8 o'clock, and I do know that people may have other things going on. But when do you think we'll be prepared to schedule that meeting so that we can get to?
I would hope by next month, okay, that
Okay.
we would be able to do that maybe sometime in April. As
Okay.
I said, they came, it's been a couple weeks now, and so I think that ball is rolling, and then we could share all those updates.
Great. All right. Well, some more to come on that, Jenny.
Oh, and I do have one thing that I need to share. We have COVID tests available if parents would like to pick them up this week before spring break. And so we'll send out a little e-blast on that, but I said I'd also announce it at our PTA meeting. So we'll have extra like tests that people can come, the kids could pick them up, people could pick them up.
Oh, good to know. Thank you.
And Shannon, we do have a quorum right now. Can I just get a quick vote of, before we sign off?
Yes. Now I
if
know some of the
somebody-
folks that joined are because they were going to talk afterwards. We were going to close this down.
As long as all the executive board members stay, I'm okay. If anybody's leaving, I need to just approve the February
Okay.
meeting minutes.
Are the members of the executive board planning on staying on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm happy to stay.
Okay. I'm staying.
I can stay if I'm on, I can stay. I don't know if you need me, but I
I
can.
just need you for like 1 second.
Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna turn the recording off at this point and stop streaming it on Facebook also.
Great. Thank you so much. Can we stay on, Jenny?
Yep, as long
Okay.
as I turn off the recording. Yep.
All right.